Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me this wonderful Tuesday. I am your host, Louise H. Reed, with listeners in over 145 countries and millions of iTunes downloads each month. I'm the fortunate host here every Tuesday at this time to look into the lives and stories of everyday people doing extraordinary things. People who take brave, bold action in pursuit of their dreams and goals and are here to share their journey to help you do the same in yours. Before we start with today's awesome guest, I'd like to thank you for joining me as you do each and every week and for providing me the opportunity to share and grow with you. There's nothing more valuable than time, so I'm honored that you're sharing yours with me. And to show my gratitude, I have started a monthly giveaway. Anyone who likes or comments on a podcast episode, likes or comments on the Facebook live feed will be entered into a monthly draw for a prize. So please comment and like away. I love hearing from you and getting your feedback. Now on to today's guest, but first let me tell you a little bit about her. Alison Fischer is a transformational leader with over 15 years of expertise nurturing Fortune 500 clients and coaching large-scale teams, bringing a unique perspective and tangible solution to changes faced by both leadership and employees in today's corporate environment. Now that's the corporate speak. What you don't know yet is just the awesomeness that is layered underneath that, and we will be jumping into that in just a minute. Her early years as a ballerina helped shape Alison as a human, teaching her that women can be both strong and graceful, purpose is paramount to success, and that team reigns supreme. Alison is also driven by a belief that it is a human right, not an elective, to feel valued in life, in the workplace, in school, at home, and in one's community. She views world-class organizations like a beautifully choreographed dance, a culture infused with diversity and inclusion, collaboration, and transparency, which include empathetic leadership, human connection, authentic engagement, purposeful mission. Now, with goals and values and ideals like that, I'm sure you're not surprised to hear that we had an immediate connection the first time the two of us spoke. And so at this time, Alison, I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Hi, Louise. How are you? I'm so excited to be here.
Hi. And I am so excited to finally be here with you as well. To our listeners, Alison and I connected a little while ago. It feels like a long time ago, although it's probably not that many months ago.
Yeah.
I've been eager to have some time to chat on my show. So happy that the time is here.
Yes.
So there's so many interesting and awesome paths that we can start to explore, Alison. But I think where I want to start, what is curious for me is, you're in the corporate world, and I'm always interested to understand why people in the corporate world doing their job are interested in coming on to speak on podcasts and share their message. So what's your why behind coming on these shows? Because you've been on other podcasts before and I've been happy to hear you. What's that? What's your reason for that? And what's the message you're wanting to share with people?
So as you mentioned in the opening, I believe everybody has value, abounding value. It's important for me to share my own personal stories, my stories of my life with my kids, who are my everything. I'm for many of you who might know me from LinkedIn, I'm a single mom of two girls, 11 and 15. I do have pretty strong beliefs on how leadership in corporate should treat their employees and engage with their employees and connect with them. And I also believe really strongly that we should be focusing on our littlest humans, making them more thoughtful and more mindful. And I just want people to know that they have value and that I believe in them, whether, as you mentioned, whether it's at home or in your community or at school or in the workplace. For me, it's a really holistic approach. I don't really separate any of them. I think they all have a thread that's common, whether you're at home with your kids or whether you're working in corporate or an entrepreneur, whatever, so it's, I just love talking about the concept of awareness and mindfulness and thoughtfulness in all those sorts of environments.
And what a beautiful mission, something that I think that when we can find meaning beyond ourselves and beyond our own family, which is obviously of vital importance, but being able to find meaning and purpose outside of that really creates quite a connection and can really move, make differences in communities and businesses and in countries and in the world.
Yeah.
So with that said, what do you think the world needs more of? If you could choose, narrow it down to. I know.
All right. So I'll start with connection.
Okay.
And compassion, maybe.
Yeah.
I think that, connection we're all looking for connection, right? Whether it's love or whether it's family or whether it's friendships or whether it's relationship with coworkers or the people that you report to at a company. I think connection adds value. And I'm not misinterpreting that or saying that people need to look outside for validation, but I think connection is different. It's making you feel like you have something to contribute and that someone is listening to you.
Well, we are, as humans, we are. Yeah, you're right. As human beings, we are hardwired to connect. Yeah. We are social animals. We actually are.
Yep.
And it's quite fascinating. Even my degree is in biology, and I remember years and years ago learning about mirror neurons and how that's how children, little babies, when you make a face at a baby, they mirror that. That's how they learn. And without that kind of environment where they can connect, there's less opportunity to learn and then thrive. And I don't think we lose that need. We don't lose that need and desire to have connection. It just changes, obviously, as we get older and we're not usually making faces at one another.
No, but it does start. To your point, it starts when you're little. I don't know it's like within the first couple of years of life or something. If you take the human touch and the human connection out of that growth with the baby, it can change their entire brain development.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's important in all walks of life. It really is.
And so what turned you onto this concept of connection in the workplace? Because you've got kids, so no doubt you recognize the importance of connection when you had them.
Yeah.
But what made you sort of bring that into the workplace? Because I think we see a lot of life being one area and work being another, whereas really it's all life. But anyway,
yes.
When and how did you sort of make that bridge and cross that over into business and leadership?
So my company had a bit of a change about maybe 4 years ago or so, and the environment shifted. We used to be a very connected, compassionate group. And I think when those are your values at home, your values in every day, I think so many people, myself included, I'm striving to have every moment of my day be value added. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to see my job and my career separate from my purpose in life. And I'm straddling the fence of it now, as you and I have discussed privately. I don't know if my personal values are mirrored in my career. And some of that is really out of my control, which is unfortunate. I show up with my values intact. But I think when that shift sort of starts to happen, you find, if it's important to you, as it is important to me, I think you find that there's a fight to be fought, that you can't just sit back and not take notice and not want to change and challenge the status quo of things. So I think I've always cared about connection in that way, and valuing others. And loyalty is extremely important to me. Integrity is extremely important to me. So those are things that I carry into the workplace. But when a shift happens at work, it sort of wakens you up to maybe needing to do something bigger. Just like certain things have happened to me in my life that have made me realize that maybe there's a bigger calling. There's a bigger need for me to speak out, to be honest, to be authentic, to be vulnerable. And I don't know if it takes something to happen. I don't think that it takes trauma in your life for you to realize. There are a lot of people that have wonderful lives, great parents, no trauma, great jobs, and they still feel compassionate about these things. In my case, it was something maybe that was contrary to my values that made me feel more passionate about doing something about it.
And I really appreciate you sharing that so openly, because I think that oftentimes when we're feeling like this internal sort of battle and we're not sure what's really wrong, it's usually you're out of alignment somewhere in your life, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And once you wake up to that, it's hard to forget. You can't go back to sleep. It's like
you cannot. Yeah, we talked. And so I remember I had spoken with you, and I remember Jay being in the background.
Yeah.
And I had felt, and as I've been feeling, and you'll have to excuse my puppy in the back. I think someone is walking across the front of my yard. So I feel transformed. I feel like there's a change in me, and you can't go back.
No.
You can't. I mean, it's only forward moving from here. Your brain shifts, your chemistry shifts. Something just changes, as I'm sure you know as well. And there really is no going back to the old you once that happens. It's a great feeling. It's a great feeling. It's scary and good at the same time, but yeah, it's phenomenal.
And I think that I like that you mentioned that it's scary, because I think it's easy from, being on the outside of watching other people make change, grow and wake up and shift. And it looks like, I can't do that. But for the person who's doing it, you're scared shitless often.
Yes, there's so many things to consider. How are you going to put the pieces together?
Yeah.
How are you become that best you?
Yep.
I'm my best me now, in me, like in my body.
Yeah.
But I want to be my best me as I walk through life. As in my career, in every day, not just come home and be the best parent or, participate in passion projects that I have with nonprofits. Those are wonderful, but those are not things that I do every moment of every day as a living per se, and there is a financial aspect to it that I don't think a lot of people want to talk about. People have to make a living to support their families. And how do you make that work? Those are scary, complex questions.
Yeah, so I have an answer to that. What's your answer to that? How do you make that work? How do you rationalize these things that at times may be out of alignment? Because you don't grow, all aspects of your being don't all level up kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
So I think when you level up in some areas, it's like, oh shit, I thought that part was fine and now it's not as well.
Yes. I would say patience. Patience is important. It's patience is a virtue for a reason, right? Making the right connections, understanding that you are still you, that I'm still human. I still have, these are values that I have, even if there's outside forces that are really preventing me from moving into a space permanently. And just accepting that. I mean, there is a level of acceptance.
Yeah.
As long as I know that I'm true to who I am and that I am putting my best foot forward at all times, that I'm showing up at all times. There's solace in that. I'm not going against my values by any means. And I'll get there. I will get there. It's just patience and acceptance, maybe.
I do. I like that. I think that, when you take aligned action and you know that it's aligned, acceptance and patience are good things.
Yeah.
And I bring this up. I was talking about this with a client earlier. And she was asking me how when something feels so awful, how you can tell if it's actually right. And I was telling her about how, when I left my ex-husband, and Alison, I know you've got a story yourself, and we may go there because I think that's
I would love to. I would be glad to. So that's good with me.
Yeah. I told my now ex-husband that, the marriage was over, and my sister, who lives 5 minutes away, I was at my parents' house at the time when this happened, why not tell your husband that you want to get a divorce and you leave him at his in-laws house, and you go to his sister's house. Anyway, maybe some compassion would have been good there. And so I drove to my sister's house, and when I left my parents' house, I was obviously upset, but fine. I got to my sister's house, and in that 5-minute drive, I had given myself a terrible migraine. I walked in the front door and I threw up all over her front hall.
Oh my goodness.
So my brain,
physical reaction.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Doing the right thing doesn't always, as long as it's aligned action, your body sometimes just reacts like as a I don't know if it's like sometimes a bit of a stress release, but everything that
Yeah.
you've been holding in your body does release. And so I bring this up not to be negative, I bring this up to more say that it is uncomfortable. Like these shifts and changes, they do get you somewhere much, you know, in an elevated place in the end, but the path there can be extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I just don't want, I find that when listeners, and that's why I love people like you coming on the show so much, who are just so open to sharing the awesomeness, you know, your passions, why you do what you do, but also the reality behind the journey, you know?
I think that's really important. It's one of the reasons why I became active on LinkedIn and started doing video. And it's why I take the approach I do with the content that I put out there, because people have looked at me my whole life as if I have this like perfectly coiffed life. And that's unfortunate. You know, that's people judging and jumping to conclusions, which is a whole bunch of things. I mean, I know that it's human nature. It's definitely human nature for people to look from the outside in and pass judgment. But I don't want people to feel that way. I want people to understand that I understand them, that I feel them, whether it's something that they're going through at work, or whether it's something that they're going through with their kids, or whether it's something they're going through in their relationship, that I don't put on this perfect facade all the time. I think it's important to be authentic. And I know that word gets thrown around a lot, but I just am who I am. If I have bad days, I've had great weeks. I mean, weeks that were fantastic. I remember posting a video once about how my week was phenomenal. And I think I was on such a dopamine high or something
Yeah.
from the week. And it was the first time I had told my personal story in public and to a group. And then the week came crashing down. And there was a level of disappointment for some things that didn't go my way. And that's reality too.
Yeah.
You know, there's highs and lows with everything in life. And I think if you hide the lows, you're not only doing yourself a disservice, but you're doing everybody that's watching, all the people that interact with you, a huge disservice by putting on this false sense of perfection. I mean, perfection is fake. It's just not real. People have good days, bad days. You need to, if you're comfortable. I mean, I understand there's some people are just not comfortable being honest about their lives. And I completely respect that. It's not the position I'm in. I feel that being honest about all of my experiences helps to have people understand that there is a connection. It goes back to connection.
It does.
You know, there's that I can relate, even if the details of the story are different. Everybody has their own journey and their own reality. The emotions are generally the same.
Yeah, they are.
So,
I think that's an interesting point. I've said a few times that, we all go through the same age, we go chronological age, right?
Yeah.
Start at 0, we get to 1 and 2 and 3. So we follow that same journey, but there's nothing else that's the same between any one of us.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating. And how social media has both been a catalyst to create connection, mm-hmm. and also a catalyst to destroy it. So I think that we're seeing, when you're selective, you can find, as we have on LinkedIn, found many amazing connections that really enrich both our personal lives and careers. And it's pretty incredible when you can connect with those right people.
Yeah. I never thought it would be that way. These are funny conversations. I've had it with you. I've had it with, friends of mine that I've met who I consider family. Never thought that was even possible doing something on a social media platform. Yeah. But I believe that if you show up and you're willing to expose yourself a bit and be honest about who you are and what you're about, then you connect with people that are like-minded, that have sharing those values.
And you attract that, right? You attract it.
If you put it out into the world, people say, right, then you wind up attracting what you put out. So
you sure do.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the waking up that you experienced in your personal life.
So it's interesting. People have asked me, are you different? Are you different now? Are you different after what happened to you? And I can share those details. I'm not, my values are the same. I've always been, I think, who I am. People evolve and develop and change, but I think your values are your values. So I remember, one of my very first memories that I talk about is me being ostracized as a kindergartner. And that's a horrible thing to remember as a young child. And that sort of bullying, it turned into bullying, and I never quite fit in. And that went on through high school. But through it all, I had this strength that I didn't know at the time. I look back now and I understand that that's what it was. Maybe some of it is how I'm built. Maybe some of it is just in my DNA. But I developed a level of resilience over those years that I then carried into being an adult. And I landed, unfortunately, in this horrible relationship. It didn't start off horrible. It was fine at the time. But he was an alcoholic. And that got progressively worse because of a couple of sort of traumatic things that happened to him. And he didn't have the level of coping mechanisms that many people have in order to not have drinking turn into alcoholism. I mean, I drink. A lot of people drink socially and it doesn't become, an addiction. And when it changed, I found myself being selfless. And I felt that I needed to put his life and his concerns and challenges first. And because I felt that I was being selfish if I didn't, that I wasn't being empathetic, that I wasn't, walking in his shoes and understanding what he was going through. And as that was happening, I was chipping away at me. My values were still there. I was still the same person, but I was hiding. I didn't share with anybody. I didn't share with anybody. At the time, really what was going on. And it wasn't a matter of shame. It was a matter of maybe me feeling that people couldn't help me, that they wouldn't understand, that even if I talked to people, that they would either be judgmental or that maybe they just wouldn't be able to do anything. So I kept it hidden. And, the whole while I was thinking to myself, at some point, this relationship is going to end. Even before I was hit, which was really the culmination of what ended the relationship. Even leading up to that, I knew that this was not going to be lifelong. And at the time, my girls were little. They were very small. One of them had just been born. My oldest was, just a toddler. And I had sort of come to terms with the fact that the relationship was going to be over, but I was trying to get him in a good place. So I put myself last. And I think this is what a lot of women struggle with, because especially if you're dealing with a spouse that has addiction, you almost feel an obligation to do what you can do either for the relationship or for the other person. And then what you wind up doing is you compromise yourself for that. But then there was one night, I've spoken pretty openly about this more recently. I've had these conversations in private for a decade now, but I came home one night with my girls. They were 1 and 4, and it was different. The aura was different. He was very, very drunk and violently drunk. And I knew at the time that I really just had to get them out. So I walked into my bedroom. I sort of put my 4-year-old in my bed. I started to pack a bag, and I had my 1-year-old on my hip. And I remember, I can play it out in my head 100 times and it plays out the exact same way. It's very strange. Like when those things happen, those really important things happen in your life, good or bad, it's almost like time stands still.
Right.
And I remember just walking down the hallway. It was almost like a slow motion thing. And he was waiting there for me. And I got hit. I got clocked. And I was so startled. But I almost knew that it was coming, but I couldn't get out. I don't live in this mansion where I have all these vast spaces. I was sort of confined to the back part of my house, and I could not get out. And he turned around and he went at me again, but he hit my 1-year-old this time. And he didn't mean to hit her. It wasn't intentional. He meant to hit me. It doesn't make it any better. But in that moment, that was it for me. I remember clearly thinking to myself, I'd never been hit before. Maybe that was the excuse that I was making. I think that's what a lot of women do too. Or it was only shoving, or, he didn't actually hit me. I was just pushed. There's so many excuses that you make up in your mind. And my excuse up until this point was, well, it never got physical.
Right.
And that was a narrative I was telling myself. But at that exact moment, that was it. And the only thing I regret, people have regrets in life. I didn't call the police. I just didn't. And even in that moment, I'm thinking to myself, he's ill. Like, even when I'm there, bloody, and my daughter was just hit, I'm still thinking to myself,
defending him.
If I call the police, he's going to jail. He's never going to get better. He'll never get his life together. I'm like, your brain works in mysterious ways. The things that you can think of in a split second, it's like your entire life can flash, and all these options. And I just didn't think that calling the police was the right thing to do for him. But then, the whole night just kept unfolding and unfolding. And I did tell him the relationship was over, and it took years. It took a couple of years to get him out of my house because I was very concerned. Again, the exit strategy is really important. And the relationship has been over ever since. It's coming on 8 years, I think. And I don't regret it for a minute. It was the best, knowing in that split second that was the best thing to do. And I never turned back was probably the single best decision that I've ever made in my life. And I don't regret the event. It's made me, it's all that resilience that I had from school and feeling ostracized. And, there's so many things. And I was able to, I guess, and finally, use that and put it to, the best possible use in the time when I needed it the most.
So much there to comment on. And first, I feel compelled just to say how courageous I think that you were then to do what you did, and how courageous you are still now to share what you went through. It doesn't mean that those who don't share are any less courageous, but I think that when you have a mission, when you have a mission to start to share, I think that helps open possibilities for those who may be listening, who hear themselves in your story, and it can give some inspiration of hope. I had someone on the show a few weeks ago, Bailey Smith, who spoke of in great detail about the situation that she found herself in, and that's really, her mess has become her message. Her pain has become her purpose. And so I think that as we walk through life, all these experiences, that they do work and business, they start to overlap, and you can sew them together in this interesting web, and share with others for the purpose really of connection. So what, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I do feel really compelled to say, so, you're in this situation that's obviously dangerous and scary, that you don't want to be there, and you're in charge of these two little people.
Yep.
What's the first thing that you did? Because whether we're talking about this kind of situation or we're talking about something else that's big in life, it's very different to make a decision and then to start to take aligned action.
Yeah.
Right? So help us understand how you went from, I've decided this is it, to then making those next steps. So like in your head, your heart, your soul, how did you start to make that momentum?
It was very strategic. I think, again, I know that every woman has a very unique story with situations like this. And I'm honest about the details, because it's strange. I think generally it's been very positive since I've shared this. But I have heard things like, oh yeah, but you weren't abused, or you weren't in it. And I don't claim to have been beaten in my relationship for 12 years, whatever it was. This was a single event that happened, and a decade of manipulation and, more emotional abuse up until that point. But then it's trying to figure out, how are you going to separate your lives? So it is bank accounts. It's the house. It's starting to figure out how to move his things, because he didn't want to leave. He refused to leave, which is why it took so long. And because he was still drinking, I was very fearful that I was going to come home one day and the house was going to be burned down, or there was going to be something horrible that had happened. So it started off with finances, really separating finances, separating credit cards, separating bank accounts. I started to secretly pack his stuff and just started to throw things out to sort of separate his things from my things. And then it was a lot of me just standing firm. Like, I never wavered. That was the biggest thing for me. There was a lot of negotiating, not on my part, but it was, are you sure you want to do this? I won't do it again. Even though he still to this day has not admitted that this event ever happened. He thinks I was lying to make him out to be this horrible person. I said,
right.
I understand that you don't remember, but it still doesn't mean that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I never wavered. I just made sure from that point onward to not debate, to not argue, to not negotiate. And I mean, there were some insane things that happened. I mean, he was talking about moving. I bought him train tickets. I bought plane tickets. I did everything possible to sort of
facilitate it.
Yeah, to really sort of sever ties. I came up with ways to say, well, we can find an apartment. Well, let's find you a place. So there was still this level of compassion and understanding from my part, but it was very strategic at this point. And then eventually, luckily, I think he woke up one day and realized she's not kidding. Wow, this is actually this is for real. And it was over. I really wish it didn't take so long, but I had a plan for that too.
Yeah.
I would have, and I was ready at that point to call the police if anything else happened. We lived sort of separate lives, and a lot of people I know had that exact situation. You sort of stay in your house, you cohabitate until you're able to separate. And there was no violence. There was nothing. There was nothing after that. But I was cautious. I was very, very cautious.
A bit more guarded. And I love how you talk about sort of creating and setting and standing true to your boundaries.
Yeah.
I see that in a lot of women, regardless of the situation, but just boundary setting is such a difficult thing for women to do. Yeah. Thinking that standing up for yourself is being selfish.
Yes. That's been my message with this all along. I mean, that really has been the message of me sharing, and it's been the feedback that I've received. The flood of people reaching out to me privately after I shared this just a couple weeks ago on LinkedIn, I think it was, has been, I mean, it's heart-wrenching almost. Yes. It's empowering and sad, and there's so many emotions wrapped up in it. I might have spent 2 or 3 days sort of crying on and off because of people reaching out to me with their own personal stories. And some people said to me, I feel justified. I feel vindicated by you telling me that it was okay. I've been living in shame and discomfort and really feeling like I've been selfish, like I made the wrong choice because their significant other is still an addict or still not doing well. And there's this guilt that you caused that. And my message is, you did not. And it's okay to put you first, whether you have children or not. You at some point need to say, I am worth more. I am worth everything, not just something, but everything. And that was the message that I think rang pretty clear to people. And I heard from men who were remarried and their wives were in prior abusive relationships, and they said, their wives don't like speaking about it, but you gave me some sense of maybe what they were going through. Again, even though I understand the personal stories and the details are so different for everybody. So
the emotions.
Different.
You said that earlier.
The emotions are the same. The emotions, everybody can relate to the feelings of fear and empowerment and control. Those emotions ring true no matter what the details of your story are. And that's, I think, what that was the feedback that I got. And that's why I believe that it's really a story for me that needs to be told. And it's not the incident or the detail per se, but it's making people understand that you're not being selfish by choosing you. That is my main message. And I think it's an important message to share, because you look at me and people don't think abuse. Yeah. It goes to the diversity issue, the inclusion issue, the judgment. People they used to see me dropping my kids off every day at school and say, oh, she's probably got it together. Look at, wow, she looks like fancy. Look at her shoes. Like everyone always used to talk about my shoes. I'm like, but little do you know, I'm in this horrible situation trying to get out.
Pull back the curtain.
Yeah, pull back the curtain. And that's, I want people to understand there are people like me that understand what you're going through. And it's okay to talk about it. And it's okay to say, I value me. I think it's just an important message, and one that I'm hoping to share on a small scale and a big scale. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I just think that making a difference and having people feel valued is so important, as we talked about in the beginning. And I'm hoping that I can share it more going forward. It's a mission for me. Really, it's a mission.
It's quite sad how universal the feelings of fear, shame, and guilt are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I like how you describe that, it doesn't really matter what the details are, because it's really about the emotion. And if we're talking about needing to create greater compassion and empathy in our workplaces, as well as in our schools and in our kids, that's a really easy way to sort of make that leap between, no, I know this story is not your story, but this is how I felt. When did you feel like that? And everyone's felt those things.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone has felt those things.
Exactly. Could be from childhood. I mean, everybody has a journey, and your journey is your own. It's your own. Own it. Believe in it, own it, and move forward. I don't feel, one of the things I said in the video specifically was that I'm not broken. I'm not, that particular incident does not define me. Just like the situations that happened to me when I was younger, and, not really having parents my parents were loving, I guess, but they were not present. They were not observant. They didn't take me seriously when I did share with them about being really severely bullied in middle school and in high school. They were a little dismissive of it. And as I moved into college, it was just like, you're going to school, but they didn't ever look deeper into me. Why? What did I want to do? And I wasn't one of those kids that just knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I was like longing for connection. The only thing I've ever wanted to be when I grew up was a mom. I mean, I never wanted to be a veterinarian. I never wanted to be, that's all I wanted to be. I remember, it's a crazy thing, which is why I think that you don't put these things together, of course, as you're going through them.
No, you can only connect the dots looking backwards.
No, not until you're older, I mean, it doesn't have to be my age, but not until you start to sort of reflect back.
Yeah.
I remember being little, really little, and babysitting little kids. And so I was even like 7 or 8, and I would be out at the pool, or I would be at my grandparents' house, and there would be like little toddlers, and all I wanted to do was be around kids. And all I remember saying is, okay, when I graduate college, I want to have a family. So it's why I believe that I feel so strongly about parenting my kids the way that I do, and being so involved, is to not repeat the type of parents that my parents were with me. And they went to ballet recitals. My dad coached every game. He was the coach for everything. But it doesn't mean that you're present with your family. There's a difference.
There is. I think it was a generational thing, not to sort of make excuses per se, but I think
for sure. They did the best they could. They really did. And but I'm not broken by that either.
Right.
Again, that's the message. I don't look back at my childhood and say, oh, it's damaged me in some way, or it has negatively impacted my life. There are, hundreds of incidents that have happened to me over the course of my life. And they've all just helped to build me into who I am. And I'm very self-aware. I know exactly why I parent the way I do. I know why I lead the way I do. I know why I'm so, why I want to be involved with other children, and making sure that they sort of understand that passion and their quote unquote why in life is way more important than choosing a career or choosing a college. They're all these threads, like you had said, it's this web that we create that starts from when we're little. And if you are lucky enough, I think, to look back and reflect, then it helps you put those pieces together so that you understand why you feel the way you do. Why is it?
So much yes in all of that. And if you're watching on video, if you're listening, you wouldn't know I was just scrounging around, sort of looking for something.
Like, should I stop talking?
I know, I'm really sorry. It's just probably like really distracting for you, but I can't even. So I surrounded myself with books. I've got countless books around me. I love my books because I get a lot of inspiration and strength and groundedness from my books. So even being surrounded by them makes a difference to sort of how I get centered. And I was looking for a book that I'm reading right now. I'm almost finished it. It's by Wayne Dyer called I Can See Clearly Now. Mm-hmm. And it's exactly what you're talking about. So Wayne, I'm talking about him like he's like my neighbor or something. He wrote, I think, about 50 books, like best-selling books. And this particular book was interesting because it was a journey through his life. And it starts sort of, I guess, at the beginning, and he recounts some of his early memories. And the end of each chapter is relatively small. And at the end of each chapter, there's a section that says, I can see clearly now. And so he sort of says, this is what I realize now, what that has taught me in my life.
Yes.
And so it's powerful.
It's exactly what I have been doing over the last couple of years. And it's really become much more clear to me over even the last couple of months. That every piece in my life is a chapter. Yeah. And every piece has shaped me in some fashion, not broken me, not damaged me. And I'm very proud of the scars. I'm proud to share what's happened and, the details of things, because it's all a lesson to be learned. It is. And it's what you take away from it. I mean, I've taken away that I have control. I have full control to make my own decisions. I cannot control other people's actions. And if you sit in other people's actions and you sit in their shit, basically, then you're never going to propel yourself anywhere. No. I can't control why my parents were the way they were. I can't look back and be resentful over the people that were mean to me. I have no control over that. I was a ballerina, as you mentioned in the beginning, for my whole adolescence up through high school. I stopped a little bit in college. I did a little bit in college. I got back into it in my 20s. But I was just like, I was like, okay. But I still loved ballet. It gave me a sense of collaboration with your fellow ballerinas when you're doing, a recital or a dance. There was structure to it. And I did ballet and toe. That was it. It was point and ballet. I know I should have brought my ballet shoes. Yes, I have my original toe shoes. They're like this little. Oh, I have mine. I should have had them, and I could have showed them.
You should have.
I get emotional now. Misty Copeland is she's my all-time favorite. But I can watch kids. If I go watch some silly kid ballet, I'm like the mother. They're not even my kids. My kids don't even enjoy ballet. And I'm like the mom that's crying in the audience because there's a connection and an emotion about it. The way that the dancers interact with each other and the music. And maybe that's part of why I feel the way that I do about people being involved with one another. Yeah. You can look back at your life and think of all the different things that have happened, but if you try to see them in a positive light, and not sit in the negative and just be grateful. I'm grateful for the night that horrible thing happened to me and my daughter. If that didn't happen, maybe I'd still be in that relationship.
Yeah. Who knows what you would have continued to tolerate.
Yeah. Maybe I would have continued to tolerate it. Maybe it would have been worse. Maybe I could have died. I mean, that night was really bad, and he was not in his right mind. It could have been worse. It could have been much, much worse. So I look at those things. I try to look at the light in everything. So am I happy in my career? No. But do I harp on that? No. I just try to see, who do I want to be? Mm-hmm. Are you showing up as your best you? And then you have to do the work. I'm not saying to not do the work, but the pieces will fall into place as they're meant to be. And cut yourself a little slack. As we've discussed before, don't be so hard on yourself. Humanity is humanity. I'm unapologetically human, as I've said before too. Yeah. And that's okay. It's okay too.
So who do you want to be?
I only want to be me. There's nobody else. I want to be the best version of me. And I feel like generally I show up in my life as that person every day, which gives me comfort. That at least, even though I might be in situations that are contrary to my values, I still stand true to those.
Yeah.
So how that unfolds, I'm still trying to put those pieces together. I know that I have this sort of trifecta that I'm interested in. I would love to get involved more with kids and their parents and helping them understand that mindfulness and gratitude and thoughtfulness is very important in understanding your purpose and your values. And if you can understand your values, then you can propel yourself forward and be more, sit in your truth more. I would love to help shape corporate culture in a way that I know that it's meant to be. There's a movement out there where leaders want to do right, but they don't know how. So I would love to be involved with that. And I want to tell my story. Those are three things that are very important to me. And I'm trying to figure out how to put those pieces together. It's the how that I'm working on right now, not the what or the why or the who. I know who I am. And that's powerful unto itself. I think that's really powerful. So.
And that's who you want to be each day, like you were saying, be totally 100% you in pursuit of living more of those things.
Yes.
And exactly. contributing in those ways. And that's really, I think that when we set goals that way and we are open to be flexible to the how, because we try to control, especially, I'm not harp on moms, but I'm going to say that a lot of the women that I've worked with, high achieving moms, if you don't have your shit together and have your plan and your to-do list and your schedule, your monthly schedule all planned out, kids aren't going to get to their activities, lunches are going to get missed, groceries aren't going to get done, careers not going to grow, right? And so when we take this step back to evaluate who we are and who we really want to be in this world, it takes a bit of a different approach to see that come to light.
Yeah.
And it does take a bit of the letting go of the how. Yeah, the kids' calendars still have to get organized and lunches still need to be made.
That's important. I have said that too. I joke with my children because it's just me. It's just been me and them in the house. I've not remarried, it's just me and them. So I've told them, I said, you understand the strategy that it takes to have our lives together, right? That I can still sit on nonprofit boards and go to meetings. And I used to travel a lot for work and to do all these things. And also to get them to every softball game, to get them to gymnastics, to have food. It's like all the things. And they're not happy with me right now. I had just posted about this recently too. They are a little frustrated, maybe a little angry with me because their mom wants more. I want me to be my best me for me and for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that hurts them because they're used to me putting them first at all times. And they're not willing to accept anything less than 100%. I want to fall in love. I think you and I have talked about this. If I had to rank, love would be number one. I want to fall in love again and do stupid things like have a morning cup of coffee with somebody and walk my dog. And, it just what most people might take for granted that have a spouse that they love in the house. Those little things are missing from my life. And that's going to be a huge transition for them too. They don't want to hear about that either. They want their lives to stay exactly as they are. And I'm like, I can't continue to be the best mom and the best human and the best contributor at work or with anybody I interact with, whether it's you or my friends or my family. I can't be that best me unless I'm living my best life.
Yeah.
It's not an unrealistic expectation.
It isn't, but in the eyes of our children, and we all know that children are naturally, innately selfish, right? You teach them to look a bit broader, and they gain that with more experience and exposure in the world. But yeah, mum being their servant and being here to be of service to them, they feel pretty okay with that kind of idea. That's a pretty good job.
I have actually had, I've had very hard conversations with them. I'm a fairly progressive parent. I don't own my children. I'm pretty honest about that. I let them have their own opinions. I let them debate me. It actually creates pretty good negotiating skills if you allow your children to debate you and have an opinion. So it's a pretty good skill to have.
And critical thinking.
Critical thinking, yeah. But I've created like two little monsters, I think, and I've had the conversation with them very bluntly recently that they're being really selfish. I mean, really, really selfish, that there is a time that they need to understand. And they're not babies. And I think someone had mentioned to me in a comment, well, maybe that's why it's so difficult, because they are more understanding of really what's going on. If they were younger, maybe it would just, go right over them. But maybe it's because they are older now that they see change, and they see you not there as much anymore because you're at events or you're at workshops. And there's so many things that I do. Calls. I take a lot of calls with people to try to grow my future and connect. Networking is so important for me and for most people when it comes to potential job changes. And they don't understand that.
Yeah.
Because a year ago, that wasn't me. Yeah. A year ago, I was settling. I wasn't happy, but I was not transforming the way that I have. And they see the transformation as a direct impact, negative impact on them. So we talk about it all the time, but I don't know if I'm going through to them. They're going to have to figure it out eventually, because the train is not stopping. That's why I'm not giving up at all. So they're going to have to somehow get into it and realize that, it's the reality that they're shaping in their head. It's just not the reality. I'm still here every night. We eat, I do homework, but if it's not me 100% of the time, they're like, well, you're not around. It's like, I was around for 4 hours. That's not good enough for you. It's irony, but it's the life from a child's lens.
It is. And it's part of their journey, right? And so in the same way that we can't always see clearly what the purpose and meaning is of something as it's happening in the moment, neither do they, neither will they. And so they too, when they get older, they will look back and be like, okay, I get it. Yeah. Right. When they get married and they start a family and they look back, and then they will have more compassion for that. Like, oh, wow.
And that's okay too, because they have the right to their own journey. I can't say that, I'm not forcing that on them. They have the right to not be happy. But I also have the right to keep on moving.
Well, I don't think our job is to keep our kids happy. I don't think that's we want our kids to be happy. Of course, who would say I don't care about my child's happiness? No one.
But there's a difference. I think people hear that and they think that you're intentionally being neglectful or something.
Right.
It's a very different thing. I want them to have joy in their lives. But if I won't compromise my joy for that's how perception.
Yeah, and that's how they learn. Yeah. That's how, you'll know this already, this is why you'll be doing this kind of thing, that you're being aligned to your values. And that's how you teach kids to kind of find theirs and live in alignment with theirs.
Yes.
And if
you have to lead by example. What would I be doing if I wasn't?
Yeah. So, if you want them to be joyful, you got to model joy.
But that's another conversation I've had with them. I've had that exact conversation. I said, you don't want your mother, could you imagine if I fall in love again? They're like, ugh, gross. I'm like, come on, but they don't see my joy as their joy, and that's okay. That's okay. They have immature minds. So it's like, you just, I just continue to do the best that I can with them and stay on a path of what I know is right for me and really for my family.
Absolutely.
And the guilt comes in from time to time because they're pretty good about it. But that's why I say I've created some monsters, because I'm like, you guys are too emotionally intelligent. You're just not selfless enough. But yeah, it's you understand your values, stay true to those values, stay the course. And if you have the opportunity, which is why I think it's important for the littlest of little ones to understand that values are important. You had put out the video about picking two. That was like torture for me. And I think I landed on loyalty and integrity. And it's not to say that my family is not one of my top values, but I think if you have loyalty and integrity and honesty, whatever it winds up being, those are modeled in family and in relationships. I think it's important for everybody to understand what their values are.
It
I mean, if
is.
you can't narrow it down to 2 because you're too little, that's fine. Pick 5. But
I think I mentioned on LinkedIn as well that I struggled with that. So that was a challenge by, I don't know if it was Martin Baumeister or Steve Sullivan.
Yes, I think it was. Yeah.
And I actually sent him a private message and said, I can't do 2.
I sent you the same one. I said, this is torture. I think the first comment I said to him was, I don't think I can do this. I'm going to have to come back to you. And I waited like a couple of days, and then I think you posted yours. And I was like, oh, I love her so much, but I don't want to steal hers. I have to come up with my own.
But I think what's interesting about that is, well, what you just shared, like that it is hard, and that it's the story behind the words that you choose as values.
Yeah.
I could have said the same 2 words as you, but they actually may have had completely different meanings. Yeah. Like mine are freedom and family, and I kind of love that family is there, but I'm like, what? It doesn't feel like a career is important to me. Right. But actually it does, because it's embedded within, there's a story behind how that impacts my career, right? And so, so that's the interesting interplay of how the words and the values align. But when times get tough, that's when your values become even more important, because then you can lean into them, and they make everything clearer. They don't make life easy, but they make decisions like what you should and shouldn't do, what will be best for you and not best for you, what will take you closer to reaching a mission or not. It makes those things pretty clear.
Yeah. I had the opportunity a couple weeks back to talk to some high school students about passion and purpose, because it's very difficult. High school is, I mean, it gets harder and harder with every generation, I believe. And they're all struggling with, what do I want to do? My parents want me to do one thing. I don't necessarily want to do that. And it's very difficult for them. So we talked a lot about values. We talked a lot about gratitude. Talked a lot about being self-aware and understanding that there's a story behind every decision. One of the kids, I had asked him, what he's passionate about, and he said basketball. And I said, why? And he sat back for a minute, and he's like, because I love basketball? I said, no. I said, you need to dig deeper than that. And it wound up that he loved playing the game, but he was more, I guess, involved and driven by the team, the sense of connection with the team, and the sense of pride that he got from winning and even from losing, because of the camaraderie that the team had when they all got together when they lost, and the honor in that, and what he thought he brought to the team, his position. And I'm like, those are your values. Those are the things that make you unique.
And you know what,
relationships with others,
Absolutely. And I love how you said, you dig beyond the surface. You ask why, and you often can ask why a few times, and that starts to really peel back some of those layers. So any listener who has children, who has preteens and teens, great questions, great dinner time conversation. And so I challenge and encourage you to start those conversations. We are coming to the top of the hour, Alison, but I'd like to give you the chance just to share some final words, whether it's something that you would like to challenge the listeners on, whether it's a favorite quote of yours, or just to share something that grounds and inspires you that you think is worthy of sharing with the audience.
I might end this with the challenge that I did with the kids that day. So I asked them all to humor me a little bit. I don't know if they're going to do it or not. And I don't work in the school, so I can't force this on them, and I can't really monitor it. But I'm going to go back in a month and see what happens. But I challenged them all to spend just 1 minute, 2 minutes every day. And adults should do this too. It's like living your life, setting your intentions for the day. Start your day brushing your teeth. If everybody has to brush their teeth. Everybody, gets themselves ready. Just take a couple of minutes every day to think about what you're truly grateful for. Start your day thinking about the positive. Go over your values. Go over what you truly value and set your intentions. And when I did this with the kids, they didn't quite understand what intentions were. And I said, intentions don't have to be that complex. It could be, I'm going to be nicer to my mom today. I'm going to be nicer to my sister. I'm going to be a better friend. I'm going to, resolve this conflict that I was having with somebody at school. And if you set your life that way, and you're mindful. I do it every day. I take a walk with my dog. It's really my only thing I do. A lot of people have, different approaches to their morning. I get up half asleep, have a cup of coffee, make my coffee for myself, and take a walk with my dog. And while I'm walking, I think about all the things I'm grateful for. I breathe the air. I look at the sky. My neighborhood is quiet. And I set my intentions for the day. I didn't realize I was really doing that until I think somebody had mentioned it, but I think about who I am, what I value, and what's important to me in life. And I think if everybody can do that, just for a little, that's why I say brushing your teeth. It's easy. Everybody brushes their teeth for 2 minutes. Do it, because it changes your day. It changes your mind. It's, so I challenged them for 30 days, and I would say everybody should do it for 30 days and see how much it transforms you.
I challenge all of the listeners and would love to hear from you who is accepting that challenge. So please drop me a line, let me know. Louise@louisehreed.com. Please let me know, and I will also share with Alison. Alison, how can my listeners get in touch with you if they wish to learn more about what you do in this world and can see some of the content that you're putting out there?
So LinkedIn is really where I'm most active. I'm in the process of developing a personal website, which is not updated yet, but I will share that with Louise when it's ready. But yeah, LinkedIn is the best place. And I believe my link is Alison D is my middle initial, and Fischer. I'm based out of I live in New Jersey. I come up in New York, but I would say LinkedIn is great. I post a lot of content, share a lot of things, and I love engaging with people. So I would be glad to meet you all.
Awesome. And I will put that link to your LinkedIn profile, Alison, in the show notes. So those listening, just check out the show notes and you can find Alison there. Alison, thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you, Louise. It was a pleasure.
Oh yeah, and just sharing your heart and your story just so openly and honestly. I'm thrilled to have had you on the show, and I know there'll be listeners who have benefited. I also want to thank all of you, as always, my loyal listeners and followers, and remind you that information about my radio show and my guests can be found at louisehreed.com. Also, a big shout out and lots of love to my producer, Cameron Steele at Contact Talk Radio Network. And finally, I'm here to highlight and showcase people like Alison, who are taking brave, bold action and whose actions have a positive impact in our world. With that said, I'd like to encourage you all to be brave, be bold, be happy, and encourage you to take that challenge of Alison's. Until next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'm Louise H. Reed, wishing you all an amazing day. Goodbye, friends.